This time on Landmarks, we check out the trendiest hotel in Singapore. We view the ever-changing, stark beauty of a red heart. Check out the public spectacle of ancient Rome. And visit Britain's seat of power. But first, Noah's Ark is described in the Torah, the Bible and the Quran as a large boat that was built to save humans and animals from destruction during the great flood that covered the earth. Its power as a religious artefact and symbol has brought about renewed efforts to find its resting place. A group of Russians has just returned from an expedition to Mount Ararat, reviving their quest to find Noah's Ark. Expedition leaders say they plan to continue their trips in the coming years and hope to find scientific proof that the Ark exists or does not exist in this region of present-day Turkey.
Yes, Noah's Ark. Noah's Ark to the people who know about the Bible. Okay, this is a kind of legendary symbol of the past of the humankind. For other people, whom we could explain that Noah's Ark could be regarded as the symbol of the salvation of humankind, is another symbol. And this is a really interesting and I think a really important story for the whole humankind.
The expedition, led by Andrei Polyakov, set out to explore key areas that were long believed to be the resting site of Noah's Ark. The team began by exploring the boat-shaped mound site just south of Mount Ararat, known as Durapinya. This formation is one of 3 boat-like structures along Mount Ararat that has stirred debate over the past decades. Some proponents argue that it is the remains of, or the impression left by, Noah's Ark, while others say that it is only a natural formation. It is certain that the Ark is there. We found many things that confirm that people lived there in ancient times and that it was Noah and 8 people who were with him. We brought back some video which will be in our film that proves this. We also have video of a boat which had been believed to be Noah's Ark. We have no doubt that this is a boat. Nobody in our expedition doubts this. We will let scientists determine whether or not it is Noah's Ark. But this is absolutely some type of ancient boat, and this proves that the craft of boat building has existed for thousands of years. They are not the first expedition to the region, but the most recent. During the Cold War, the region was closed because it was right on the border between the Soviet Union and NATO member Turkey. It remains a politically sensitive area today, with the Kurdish population living along the border with Armenia and Iran, and for this reason, access is limited. Polyakov and his team were granted a rare chance for their 6-day mission and depended on the knowledge and hospitality of the locals. As far as I understood, the locals seem to divide people into 2 categories. They don't show everyone what is there. In order for them to show you, you have to have a key to their hearts. And I think this is what made our expedition successful. We were able to communicate with the locals well. They were wary of us at first and didn't show us anything at the beginning. There were times when we arrived at a location and we knew what we wanted to film there, and we were standing practically 5 meters from the object, but they would tell us that there wasn't anything there. So we would leave, but we would talk with them and explain some things to them, and then we would return after 2 days to that same location, and they would show us immediately what was only 5 meters away, and we would see it. The expedition hopes to extensively explore Mount Ararat in the coming years with an international team of scientists and researchers. But if indeed they do find Noah's Ark, they hope that the historic artefact can remain at Mount Ararat, explored, discovered, but undisturbed by commercial ventures. Coming up, Singapore's Fish Hotel. Now here's a landmark with a difference. A hotel in Singapore where the fish are the guests rather than the main course. Yes, it's true. Lovers of Japanese carp fish, known as koi, are paying big money to rent space in special hotels in Singapore to ensure they're comfortable. Businessman Tony Lee finds his koi more entertaining than a night out on the town. He spends nearly 5,000 Singapore dollars a month, about $3,500 US, on food and rent for the 100 koi he owns. They are living the good life in total pampered comfort at the Nippon Koi Hotel, because Lee's own pond is not big enough to keep them all together.
You'll find that you don't waste a lot of money on the nightclubs or the karaoke, that you spend all the unnecessary money away. So when you have a koi fish, when you're free, you just came down here and have a good look with them. Then they make you very, very feel happy.
Tony Lee is not the first man in history to put the love of his life up in a hotel. And that's where Ah Seng saw an opportunity. He says many people love fish but can't house them because their homes are too small or their relatives don't share their tastes. Ah Seng says that some men rent space in the hotel just to stop their wives from seeing how much money they spend on their koi.
Yeah, some customers just put their koi here, they just, because at home their wives just don't like him keep koi, but they love koi, so they just keep their koi in here. Only the weekend they come here and see.
The Nippon Koi Hotel has about 100 customers, all of them male, and about 200 ponds in 3 different sizes, from small to huge. Some of the ponds are deeper than others, as koi breeders claim the deeper the pond, the bigger the fish. The largest ponds are known as the presidential suites and are for serious breeders who raise koi to sell at auction or enter in competitions. Each comes with a room or pond number, and koi lovers can keep a record of their pets' shapes and sizes. The Koi Hotel's ponds cost from 250 to 750 Singapore dollars a month. Public relations consultant Tay Kwan Yan fell in love with koi 12 years ago. Today he owns about 80 of them. While one half stays in the Koi Hotel's presidential water suite, the other half swims in his own cosier-sized pond. The 2 groups rotate their pond homes every 6 months.
Important aspect about the Koi Hotel is that just like in a hotel, you're receiving a full suite of services 24 hours a day, which again you might not receive at home because, well, whether we like it or not, we have a job to do, and sometimes that takes us away from the fish. Whereas here, we have people who look after the fish all day long. They help us feed the fish, and they help us to monitor the fish. So if anything is wrong, whether it's health or whether it needs a little bit more pampering, then certainly we get that from the Koi Hotel.
Tay Kwan sends them to the hotel to grow larger in the bigger ponds. Tay says he's too busy at work to tend to his fish. The hotel also provides hospital services for sick koi that are suffering from skin disease. The most common sickness is ulcers caused by bad water. Koi lovers say fish even suffer from stress caused by travelling from one pond to another.
Sometimes when the koi is feel sick, it just stay at one corner. It doesn't take the food at all. It will never join the group of the koi, so that you can tell the koi is sick, so that you have to take care of the koi. If really myself can't really treat them, I will bring it over to the pond over here, and these people will take care of my koi.
Some think it a fishy business, but in Singapore, loving your koi is paying off. When explorer Ernest Giles first saw the Central Australian icon Uluru in 1872, he concluded it was a structure built by a race of giants. Giles, the first white man to see the amazing sandstone rock, could perhaps be forgiven for his imaginative mistake. After weeks of walking through the flatlands of Australia's deep red centre, Uluru, also known as Ayers Rock, must have seemed like an entity from another world. Uluru towers above an otherwise flat landscape. It stands 348 metres high and is nearly 10 kilometres in circumference. An unobstructed 360-degree view of its familiar red sandstone gives viewers a continual light show as the colour of the rock changes with the time of day and more gradually through each season. Uluru and its surrounding areas have great cultural significance for the local traditional owners, the Anangu Aboriginal people. At the nearby Docker River community, the Niangatjatjara people have taken a bold initiative to improve their own conditions while taking care of the local environment. Experts say there are around 750,000 camels roaming around the outback, so the Niangatjatjara are building a series of stockades to trap wild camels in a bid to tap into the lucrative Asian and Middle Eastern markets.
And we'll work really hard to make us this community strong so that we can let the world know that we're doing it for, not for us community, but for everybody, you know. Everybody might have local, yeah. Well, they're doing it good, you know, in Dog River. So some people might come, they have a look for themselves, you know, for themselves, and that we have what we're doing here. We're showing them.
The project was created by the Niangatjatjara Aboriginal Corporation in a region where the unemployment is over 50%. A tank of water inside the stockade will attract the camels, and then after a few weeks the crew will install one-way gates trapping the animals.
Yeah, I believe camels will be very, very successful because they breed out here. You don't actually have to maintain them. They're very maintenance-free, and yeah, every year the numbers are improving, and yeah, they're basically free for the community to sort of harvest.
Camels were brought into Central Australia by Afghani railway builders and explorers who relied on the hardy animals to travel through the harsh desert. Most were released in the mid-1920s, when motor vehicles began operating in the central areas of Australia, and they established free-ranging herds in the semi-arid desert. Nowadays, their descendants are some of the healthiest camels in the world, and they range across northern, western and South Australia. Tourists to Central Australia often count a camel ride as top of their to-do list.
Because we're in Australia, and that was one of the things that we had read about the camels being brought in, and I wanted to experience that.
But there is also an ecological imperative attached to camel harvesting. Wild camels cover huge areas of the desert and may outnumber red kangaroos by about 100 to 1.
If camels aren't brought under control and the population growth rate isn't reversed, that we'll be in a situation where the Australian deserts which aren't really true deserts, will eventually become true deserts. They will become devoid of a lot of vegetation, and they won't be places where Australian native animal species can live and survive.
Glenn Edwards, Senior Scientist at the Northern Territory Parks and Wildlife Services, recommends culling or removing these wild camels from the desert to keep numbers down. If the Docker River camel muster proves successful, then this could be one way of reducing the local camel population and also promoting the local economy. Coming up, Rome's modern-day gladiators. The Colosseum in Rome has been the site of many fierce battles. It is the original sporting stadium, a blueprint that has been copied numerous times over the past 2,000 years. It had a nearly enclosed roof, tiered stands, and organised ticketing for the crowds of over 50,000 who attended countless life and death contests over hundreds of years. The Colosseum's heyday may have been 1,500 years ago, but over the last 50 years, tourism has brought the crowds back in large numbers to a site synonymous with the grandeur of ancient Rome. Both tourists and the services provided for them have grown more sophisticated in recent years, New technology such as 3D modelling is bringing history back to life. But not all aspects of tourist versions of history are fitting into this new world. Roman authorities fear unregulated gladiators are giving the whole country a bad name, so they banned them from working near the Colosseum. As you'd expect, the gladiators didn't take their fate quietly. They blew whistles and demanded the right to work outside the Colosseum. These days, the 21st century gladiators hang around outside the Colosseum and pose for tourists who wish to be photographed with them. They promised us licenses and permits in order to continue working here at the Colosseum. Instead, we have been booted out. Another epic battle is looming. We don't know why we have been booted out, because they said we damaged the image of the Colosseum. Although a number of tourists have complained about exorbitant prices and shabby uniforms, some believe they are a fun addition to the ancient Roman monument.
I think they add value, fun to visiting the Colosseum.
Well, we just took our picture with them, so we like them. So yeah, I think they do. I think the Colosseum, it's not exactly a fun visit per se, and they add a little bit of humour to the visit and a little bit of fun to it.
Great, thanks.
The Colosseum is Italy's most visited archaeological site, attracting almost 3 million tourists a year, so the gladiators have a lucrative market for their pitch.
I think provided they stay outside here, it's fine. I think if they were hassling people inside, it would be different, but I think they should leave them here.
To the uninitiated, the idea of the very symbol of imperial Rome, the gladiator, being banned from the Colosseum is unthinkable. But in fact, it is history being repeated. Gladiators were professional fighters who fought each other, wild animals and condemned criminals, many of them political and religious dissidents such as Christians. Although some emperors such as Nero and Caligula encouraged their bloodthirsty feats, others disliked them. Tiberius, Cicero and Constantine were three who curtailed their activities and at times even banned them. After the uprising of the former slave Spartacus, emperors regularly exiled gladiators from Rome during times of civil unrest for fear of them turning against the authorities. The first known gladiatorial games were recorded in 264 BC, and it was during the reign of Vespasian in 70 AD that the Colosseum we know was completed. It took until 367 AD for the courts to stop condemning Christians to the Colosseum. Gladiatorial contests were stopped at the Colosseum in 404 AD, thus ending a 330-year run at the same venue. Modern research has uncovered much about the real lives of the gladiators, and perhaps what is most surprising to us is that it's believed that only 10% died in combat. However, they rarely live past 30. The modern variety, though, appears more likely to die from other causes, most commonly smoking. London is a city where history is always close to the surface. Its architectural landmarks are a reminder that the most significant sites do not always have to be monumental in size. This story is about one such building. Number 10 Downing Street. Behind the quiet facade of this famous black door lie many secrets. Number 10 has been the setting for violent riots, passionate protest and surprising activities. It contains the official residence of the Prime Minister and other government buildings. In effect, it is the home of the British government. Cabinet, the seat of government in a parliamentary system, has held its meetings in the same room at number 10 since 1856. Prime Minister Gordon Brown recently moved the weekly cabinet meeting from Thursday to Tuesday. Pioneering policies have been developed and world-changing meetings, chaired by Britain's greatest leaders, have taken place inside its walls. It is office and workplace for the Prime Minister and the staff employed to support him in his role. Downing Street has been the nerve centre of the British government through 2 world wars. It was in front of number 10 that then Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain proclaimed there would be peace in our time, while waving his soon-to-be broken pact with Adolf Hitler. The next Prime Minister in residence, Winston Churchill, had to move after a German bomb shattered several rooms and killed 3 civil servants in October 1940. The toll would have been worse had the Prime Minister himself not warned kitchen staff to leave the area shortly before the attack. Such physical violence has been thankfully rare. However, the increased fear of terrorism in recent times has brought about some modifications. In 1989, large black gates were installed following an IRA attack on London. After September 2001, security has been tightened even further. Downing Street began its association with the office of the Prime Minister in 1730. The street was named after Sir George Downing, who served under Cromwell in the 17th century. It runs from Whitehall towards St James Park. That the house is still being used today by Gordon Brown is due to the refusal of Britain's first ever Prime Minister, Robert Walpole, to accept the house as a personal gift. Instead, he insisted it be used by future First Lords of the Treasury. During its history, the house has undergone major development to be turned into a grand residence, fit for the most powerful politician in the country. It has never been an overpaid job. Until the early 20th century, incoming Prime Ministers had to move in their own furniture. The PM's neighbours are the Chancellor of the Exchequer at number 11 and the Government Whip at number 12. Although recent Prime Minister Tony Blair took over number 11 as well because he needed the space for his wife and children. He wasn't the first Prime Minister to do so. In 1881, William Gladstone took over number 10, 11 and 12 Downing Street to accommodate his growing family during his final term in office. To the present day, 51 men and 1 woman have passed through the doors of number 10 Downing Street as British Prime Minister. These days, the complex remains a hive of activity. Even in the 1980s, then Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher said the main problem with living on top of the shop was that the line between home and work became increasingly difficult to maintain. Britain may no longer have an empire to maintain, but it remains a powerful presence in many parts of the world and an influential member of the European Union. So despite its humble facade, number 10 remains a seat of power rivaling the most ostentatious.